In this lesson, I'd like to demonstrate some things that could go wrong when dealing with conditionals. And trust me, these things will happen to you, so it's best to be prepared for it. Let's look at the code sample in front of us. We have on line 1, us setting a variable called pow to the value of 100. We then have a conditional statement that begins on line 2, saying if pow is 100, then execute the lines of code from here down to the end statement, so that would execute lines 3, 4, and 5, which would print to the terminal the numbers 5, 10, and 1000 respectively. If we run our code, indeed, we see those numbers in the terminal. Now what I'd like to show you is what would happen if we inadvertently, or in this case rather purposefully, leave off the end statement from line 6. As you might expect, we do get an error message, and I hope that I've trained you well enough by this point that the first thing that you always want to look at when reading an error message is the line number. As you can see here, it says that there's something wrong going on line 5. And the thing that's going wrong is syntax error unexpected end of input expecting keyword end. So those last words make a bit of sense, right? Expecting keyword end, we are missing the end keyword. But what is tricky here and could be confusing is the fact that it says that this error is taking place on line 5. If you look at line 5, it is a perfectly valid line of Ruby syntax. It says P1000, which is perfectly fine. So why does Ruby say that the error is taking place on line 5? So if you think about it, the error here is the fact that we're missing something. We're missing the end statement. So what line should Ruby say that the error takes place on? It's hard to say really because it's something that we're missing. We're missing it from our code entirely. It's really hard to peg that down to a specific line. So what Ruby ends up doing is pins it to the last line of real code that we actually have. So the last line of code that we have here is line 5. Technically we have a blank line on line 6, but apparently Ruby ignores that. So it says, okay, the last line of Ruby code that we have here is line 5. So Ruby simply says, okay, it's a problem with line 5 because by the time you get to the end of our code, which is line 5, hey, I didn't see the expected end statement. So this is an unusual case where the line number is actually not so useful. And sometimes it can indeed be tricky to figure out where exactly we're missing our end statement. So it's just good to be aware of that. Now, if we put back the end statement, but left out the if statement, the error message that we would get is error on line 6, syntax error unexpected keyword end, expecting end of input. So here it's an unexpected keyword end. So this is a slightly tricky thing here too. Really the problem is that we're missing an if. But from Ruby's perspective, Ruby doesn't know that you intended a conditional to take place here. So all Ruby says is, hey, I see an end statement on line 6, which I totally didn't expect because as far as I'm aware, says Ruby, there is no conditional here. So here too, it pegs the error on line 6. But now that you're aware of the nature of these kinds of error messages, you'll be much better equipped to deal with them when they arise.